In fact, it is a reverse step because a lot of countries, instead of phasing out industrial building allowances, have actually enhanced industrial building allowances. For example, in the UK, allowances for industrial building is given to hotels, given to commercial buildings. But in Singapore now, they are taking it away. So I certainly hope that there will be a rethink on this. And I think the problem with this phasing out probably arises with the Economic Strategy Committee recommendation. Because again, the big boys talk to the minister, the big boys talk about big investments, but they forget to look at the smaller industries. Because if you look at employment, SMEs actually employ a lot of people. Now this is an interesting incentive, angel investor incentive. Some of you may recall that under our Economic Expansion Incentives Act, we also previously have qualifying investments, where qualifying investments approved by EDB also qualify for deduction. But under those incentivized activities, you get deduction only if you sell your investment and incur losses. But what is interesting about this proposal is if you were an approved angel investor and you make an investment of at least 100,000, then you just need to hold it for 2 years and you get a 50% deduction. And the minister doesn't talk about any losses, doesn't talk about any clawback. So the attraction really is, well, first get yourself approved as an angel. So I think you have to talk to some pastors to see how we get higher up. So once you become an angel, then next thing you have to do is to find enough money, right? But I suppose if you're up there, because I was told you spend the whole day playing the harp, singing hymns, so you should pluck gold from all over the place, right? So the attraction also is you can deduct up to maximum investment per year of 500,000. So what is really very nice is you make an investment, you may not lose money, but after 2 years, you get a deduction. And for example, if your investment turns profitable, you go IPO in the 4th year, you make a lot of gain. And these gains will not be taxable. But one question I have, and I hope we'll raise it in the IRIS seminar, is what happens if you are an angel investor and you are so popular, a lot of inventors and businessmen come to you for investment. So over a course of a few years, you would have made investments and you will gradually be divesting. When you divest, is there a risk? IRIS will say, well, now you have repetition, frequency of transaction, batch of trade. You are trading. So I think we should clarify this with IRIS, because if we want to make this successful, we have to tell the investors that, look, we want you to groom and help inventors, businessmen to grow and expand worldwide. But you are taking risk. So if you're taking risk, making an investment, that investment should be capital. But as I say, the risk is if you're so popular, then IRIS may, I don't know the answer yet, say you're trading. Okay? And it's well and good when the minister announces something. It's different a few years down the road when suddenly you make maybe $7 million out of your 100,000 investment. Like some of you will know people investing in Google. I was told if you put 100,000 down on IPO, you would have made like 10 million. Now, DEI for legal services. DEI is Development and Expansion Incentive. So what the government is trying to do is to encourage large legal firms to set up in Singapore. As it is, we already have a number of international legal firms set up in Singapore. So what the government is trying to do is to make it even more attractive for them. So under the DEI incentive, as the words imply, it is an incentive given for development and expansion. So if a legal firm is already in Singapore, then when you're given the DEI incentive, your incentive will cover incremental profits. In other words, your base profit, i.e. profits of the last 3 years, will be the base. Average annual profit of the last 3 years will be the base. Any incremental profits from overseas activities will be incentivized, i.e. depending on how large you are, taxable either at 10 or 5%. And this will be administered jointly by EDB and Ministry of Law. Financial sector incentive. Now in 2003, MAS rearranged and rationalized the financial incentives and rolled it under one incentive, the financial sector incentive. Before that, when we have a bank, we have what we then call the Asian Currency Unit, which is the incentivized activity, and the domestic banking unit, which is the domestic sector, not incentivized. So when FSI was introduced, we had to compute a qualifying base. In other words, what was your base income before the FSI came in? So it was rather complicated formula to compute the base. Of course, the auditors who are involved in computing the base didn't mind, because we actually charge quite a lot of fees to compute the base. Of course, the banks didn't like it. So representations were made, and now the minister has proposed that going forward, banks and financial institutions will not require to compute this qualifying base. But as a quid pro quo, instead of being taxed at 10%, they will now be taxed at a flat 12%. So the 12% takes into consideration that previously the base was taxable at the normal then 18%. Now derivatives trading had been incentivized, so you can be under FSI, Financial Sector Incentive, or in fact you can go under Section 43. So what is happening is the incentive under Section 43, namely 43D and 43K, will be subsumed into FSI, and going forward it will be administered by the MAS. Real estate investment trusts. Now, if we look at our REITs, we had been very successful in the listing of REITs because we had income tax transparency. In other words, qualifying income will not be taxed in the hands of the trust, but taxed in the hands of unit holders, and for individuals, they're tax exempt. So it was actually a very attractive form of investment. But the incentive for tax transparency, GST exemption, stamp duty exemption expired actually on the 17th of February 2010, because initially the concession was given for a 5-year period. So what the minister has done is to extend it for another 5 years until 31st of March 2015. Now please note that going forward, all our incentive actually has a sunset clause, because what MOF had done in the past was review all the incentives. They said, well, it is not acceptable to ourselves and also, more importantly, to our treaty partners that we have incentives that is evergreen. So what they have done is always to have a 5-year exemption. Of course, this 5 years exemption or incentivization, if it's proved to be good for the economy, will be extended like the REIT. Now,